Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by 4for4 Bets. Ryan Noonan here, as always. My friend Connor Allen. We are what, Connor? Like 70-something days, almost like 10 weeks and change or so from week one of the NFL season. And it's like fast approaching. We're still in June, but like his stuff sneaks up on us real quick. Really excited to start to maybe look into what's going on in week one. These odds have been up for a little bit here. We're going to touch on some of our favorite plays that are on the board as this market kind of sharpens and gets tighter here as we approach week one. Buddy, what's going on?
Yeah, not much. I'm excited. There's a couple of looks that I liked early on, and there's a couple of spots here where teams that I'm looking to fade are playing, teams that I'm looking to like be a little bit higher on the market. So, I don't know. I like to sprinkle a little bit out because I think that some of these lines will move closer to the season too, especially once we get a little bit of preseason hype, a little bit more understanding. But I think we have a pretty good grasp at this point, like who these teams are for the most part, at least heading into the season. Honestly, most of the preseason stuff is like fantasy player prop kind of usage-based stuff, not really as much like holistically from a team perspective. So, yeah, I think we should have a couple of good nuggets. And as you guys can see, anyone watching on YouTube, I'm once again not home. I'm in Detroit for the second time this year. I've never been to Detroit in my life. Now I've gone twice in 1 year. Yeah, get to watch some golf, the Rocket Mortgage, and, hopefully punt some money away betting.
That's a lot of bet behind you. Like that's
right? No, it's two. It's too bad.
Okay. Okay. I'm like, damn, that is it seems larger than a king, right? I mean, like that's a lot of bet, man.
It's the DraftKings special. That's what they give you for the qualifiers. They give me a little goodie bag, like I qualified and everything. So I got a nice gift card and all this stuff to the shop. I mean, this is like I'm being treated like royalty just because I have a friend who's way better at DFS than I am.
Yeah, it's nepotism takes shape in different forms, and I guess this is a proximity of that. So good for you. Who cares, right? Swag is swag, and it's good to have smart friends. You don't even play DFS really, right? So you're not qualifying for anything. You've never entered a DFS qualifier.
I did enter some DraftKings contest this week, just for fun, just because I was like, oh, maybe I'll have a sweat.
Have some sweat, yeah.
Yeah, I used the BetSports Golf, like Ron's, some of his like stuff, the DFS stuff. I got a couple items that are okay. I might cash a couple of lineups. That's like, but I think I'm only sitting at like 4 out of 6 that are going to make the cut probably. So it's not, I don't know. I'm not live to win anything real, but maybe at least make my money back.
Yeah, I didn't help you there. The guys I gave you this week have not gone so well today. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Maybe we get some bounce backs and make the cut here and pound some birdies. But if you want to get all of the stuff that we have going on over at 4for4, you need to get the betting subscription. It's NFL or NHL draft nights. So our Discord is kind of popping right now with NHL draft plays from our guy Vegas Refunds. Definitely want to get more information here in the show notes. If you want to get a subscription, again, the betting subscription of 4for4 gets you access to everything that we do. So if you still play season long, you're grinding best ball, you want all the tools, all the betting tools, articles, and obviously the plays via Discord, that's what you want. You get the betting subscriptions, 4for4.com/plans. Check that out. More information there in the show notes. So, Connor, kick it to you. Floor is yours. Week one, obviously, these have been out for a little bit now. They get sharpened. There's some, I would say, probably would have been my favorite play in week one is, gone now. And that's kind of what happens here as these kind of get sharpened. But, we do have some totals and sides here available. I want to give me your first preferred bet here that we have currently going on NFL week one.
Yeah, we'll go through 3 of these, but I'll start with my first one here. So my first one I'm going to go with is going to be the Chargers -3. You can find the -120 at DraftKings. I would honestly still play the 3.5 against the Raiders in week one. Chargers at home. And again, like I think right off the top of the show, I talked about 2 teams that I want to be a little bit at market or a little bit higher than the Chargers. I want to be fading the Raiders as much as possible. And I think this is a great spot to do so. If we look at how these teams kind of match up stylistically, we have a Raiders team that has an incredibly weak offensive line. Their quarterback play is a question mark. Their secondary is a question mark. Their head coach and offensive coordinator, I think, is a massive question mark. They have some really good pieces. They have good weapons, good wide receivers. They have some good edge players. But when you look at what the Chargers want to do, it's going to be ram the ball down their throats. I think they'll have success with their upgraded offensive line in the running game. Now, the passing game, again, the Raiders should be able to put a little pressure on them. I just don't know how much they're going to pass. And that's the thing is with them taking a run-heavy approach and really kind of, I think, playing a little bit of bully ball, that changes the whole pass rush dynamic a little bit there too, instead of the Chargers dropping back like 40, 50 times. So I like the offensive matchup for the Chargers. And then on the other side here, I can't say that I love the Chargers defense, but I do think that the Raiders offense is, I am just could not be lower on them. Despite having Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams, I have zero faith in Luke Getz's ability to scheme up an offense, especially given their quarterback play and offensive line play. I think the floor is extremely low for them. So I like the Chargers to win by at least 3 and up to a touchdown. I might play some alts on it as well.
Yeah, I think just based off of some of our preliminary discussions, I think you're a little higher on the Chargers than I am.
For sure.
I think, as we, look in terms of like buying team stock, obviously it's hard to argue against Jim Harbaugh's just history of winning, just taking a team, to a winning record pretty quickly everywhere he's been. I just have some concerns about like the roster holes that need to be filled and how that's going to relate. But again, I don't think this is a bad spot too, because I'm kind of with you on the Raiders being a team that want to look for different opportunities to kind of short and fire against. So yeah, don't hate that one at all. Part of it for the Chargers, big picture wise, is the schedule is really, really soft, right? So week to week, it doesn't matter as much. But if you're looking to short them on the whole, that's a little tougher to swallow because again, they're running into a fairly soft schedule. So for me, my first play that I want to highlight here, I'm the more and more, again, I think there's a lot of really good football teams in the NFC or in terms of like viable, like top tier candidates. This Lions roster is really good. And like, it looks like Goff's going to get a lot of like home games late in the season. Just a lot of things that is going their way. I like them in week 1 at home against the Rams. I think this line here at 3.5, pretty readily available. 3.5 minus 105 on FanDuel is making some pretty massive assumptions on who the Rams, especially defensively, are. And I have some concerns about that. And losing some pretty dynamic pieces, both on the sideline and on the field, right? I think Raheem Morris, I talked about how I think he coached his balls off last year, getting that defense to be even middle of the pack because it was basically Aaron Donald and a bunch of just day 3 undrafted free agents. And I think he did a fantastic job getting them to be competitive. And then Matthew Stafford stayed upright, performed well. And that team definitely exceeded expectations. Now, Morris is the coach in Atlanta, and we're going to get first-time defensive coordinator there. And Aaron Donald's retired. And Aaron Donald is such a force multiplier, and what he was able to do for Kobe Turner as a rookie and some of those other defensive ends that had decent seasons. I think that's very different in terms of how a defensive or an offensive line has to scheme against you with Aaron Donald in the lineup versus not in the lineup. So they just haven't done anything that really makes me think that that's a unit that's going to sustain what they did last year or really take a step forward. I think the offense is probably fine, but this Lions team, I think, they were really good last year. They just absolutely shit down their leg in the second half of the NFC Championship game. They probably should have been in the Super Bowl, but this roster is drastically improved. I think the defense is really strong. The offensive weapons, who becomes wide receiver 2 there is, I think, definitely an interesting discussion of what happens in the next 70 days or so. But they use Sam Laporta so much at tight end, and he's such a mismatch that he's essentially the wide receiver 2. I think you see more out of that backfield here. I'm big on the Lions this year. And I just want to find ways to get in on them. And 3.5 feels a little short. Obviously, the hook can scare some people off, but I think that there's more of a gap between these two teams than what is currently out there, especially at minus 105 there. What are your thoughts on the Lions or the Rams in general or this game?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think my initial lean would be, I like your handicap of their offense versus the Rams defense, because I think that's a pretty massive edge. I would wonder what the team total is going to come in at. I mean, it's going to be high though, because the total's high, right? It's in the
50s.
Yeah, 51.5. So you're probably looking at 27 already. So yeah, maybe the better way to play it is 3.5, because I do think that the Lions are very live here to put up 30 plus, against this Rams defense here, because again, this Lions offense here, when fully healthy, is just very good, and especially with Jameson Williams, I think taking in a little bit bigger of a role too. They just have the ceiling is just massive here. And Jahmyr Gibbs on the stretch took on a bigger role than David Montgomery too. So getting that all going together, I just don't think can be understated there. And the defense got better, like you mentioned. So I think that's probably a pretty good look there, even at 3.5.
Yeah, if we stay 3.5, 51.5, which is what FanDuel has, although there's some 51s out there too. DraftKings, Caesars, Rivers. FanDuel's actually a little off market at 51.5, but even at 51, you're at 27 for a team total, right? So we're not getting that 26.5 that we would probably like to see there to get the key numbers and get on the right side of it. So yeah, again, we have 70 days to see where this market evolves, and I think the Rams have been continuing to be kind of I don't know if I say a sexy team, but obviously they have some weapons, and I think Stafford gets a lot of pub and should, deservedly so. He's played some really good football when healthy over the last, his entire career, really. So yeah, I'm bullish on the Lions, and I want to find ways to get in on it early. So what do you got? What's number 2 for you?
Yeah, we'll go to a total this time. I'm going to go with the Bears and Titans over 43.5 total points. This is something that I think there's two teams that like the market just isn't really factoring in a lot of the offensive changes here. So I do think that the Bears defense here played a lot better in the second half of the season. But if you look at the schedule, all but like 1 or 2 games was against like really, really bad teams or like backup quarterbacks. And so obviously they got Montez Sweat midseason. But I think that some of their numbers we saw, which was, basically virtually like borderline top 5 numbers across the board, were probably a little inflated. Like I don't think that they are a top 5 defense. I think that they're probably in that, maybe 8 to 12 range, somewhere around there. And so now you're getting them matching up against the Titans offense that they got. They have Brian Callahan over from the Bengals, one of the higher pass rates there. And they've talked about nonstop, like, hey, we want to pass the ball. What do? They go out and sign Calvin Ridley to an absurd contract. They signed Tyler Boyd as well to play in the slot. There were rumors that they were considering taking Malik Neighbors if he fell to them in the draft. And then they have 2 pass catching running backs instead. Gone are the days of Derrick Henry handing the ball off. They have Tony Pollard as well. So it's like one of those things where I expect them to shift massively pass heavy, which I think does impact the game a little bit in terms of like totals and what we see in terms of total volume there. So I like them to pass the ball a lot this game, and obviously on the Bears side, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen behind an offensive line that I think is a little bit better than what's given credit for, given how bad Justin Fields made it look. So I'm excited. I think 43.5 points is going to be too low when it's all said and done, and that this game could be like a sneaky week 1 shootout. If there's any, merit to Will Levis and what we saw in the one game last year, and if Caleb Williams is advertised, which I know it sounds ridiculous, one game, but I mean, again, he's running Nick Westbrook at Keeney. Like, I mean, is that guy even like a 4th receiver on most teams? Like, he shouldn't be playing. So, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, I like the over there.
Yeah, I mean, he's number 2 on the Pats if he's a receiver in that roster. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I when you saw this, you sent it to me just before we get started, and I really like the look too. 43.5 still out there. I think the market's a little bit, there's some trepidation in terms of what are the Bears and what's that look like, and are they able to hit the ground running in week 1? And then obviously it's a transition from what we've experienced with Tennessee over the last handful of years too, and obviously shifting, new coaching staff, and as you said, new roster essentially offensively. So definitely new looks there and what we can expect. So yeah, I think that's a really good look. I'm going to stay with the total as well for my second one. I'm going to go under with New England in Cincinnati at 43 on DraftKings. This is the best, I think, in the market too. Some 42.5, some 42s. So although it doesn't necessarily matter in terms of key numbers there, 44 typically in that range is more of a key number. But look, I mean, yeah, if we're going back to like your fandom days, I'm a Patriots fan, right? So that's my squad. But like, I'm also care way more about my tickets and my money at the end of the day. And like, you can't sugarcoat it. You can't find a really easy way to be super optimistic about this New England roster, especially offensively, especially in week 1, right? It seems very likely this is a Jacoby Myers start. Jacoby Brissett start. Probably wish it was a Jacoby Myers start. But yeah, I mean, it's just not going to go well early for New England. And you can make the case that like Brissett starting over May in week 1 is probably better for New England. And I could buy that too. I still don't think that regardless of who's starting offensively at quarterback, that they have the surrounding cast to get it done. It's a poor offensive line, still remains a poor wide receiver group. And, I'm bullish on the Bengals this year. I think that they've made some improvements. The defense has more upside than people expect or are anticipating. And yeah, I mean, I just think it's a spot where, look, I mean, looking at trying to find team totals too, New England's probably going to be 16.5 or 17. So we would love to have a 17.5 under on New England here. I don't think we're going to get that, especially as team like books have started to adjust to, like they're not necessarily just going off of the lines. They're like they're kind of working around key numbers, I think, a little smarter than they used to. So I think that's not going to pop his way up. And look, I mean, this could be a 27-14 game. We see some of that upside of the Bengals offense, and it still goes under because New England just can't carry their water there. So thoughts on Pats Bengals?
Yeah, the New England's defense is not like that bad. I mean, they're
yeah, and that's why I think under again. That's why you might not see a ceiling outcome from the Bengals, right? Like Judon back, Christian Gonzalez back, like they could hold them to 21, 24 points for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's. I think I like it. I think it's kind of a fun look. I mean, well, not fun, but I think it's a winning look. That's I think what matters. And I'm team under, so you don't have to convince me too hard to play an under on a team, especially a Patriots team that I think has just a lot of issues. I just don't know, like, how are they going to move the ball against like functional offenses? Like, I mean, they didn't last year. So, I mean, Brissett I think is probably a minor upgrade, but I mean, it's pretty ugly. I guess they have a real offensive coordinator in place, like,
Sure, who like is rarely ever called plays and is never like, I don't know. Again, you're hoping like by osmosis that he learned from, good play callers. He's been all over the place, but again, like talent at the end of the day wins, right? You got to line up and beat the dude in front of you. And I just don't know how they keep Brissett clean. There's a nice pass rush on the other side. There's a lot of young talent in the secondary for Cincinnati. And like to your point too, the other part of the handicap is New England's defense is going to be okay. Like that's going to be their only calling card to keep them in games, is that they can try to keep teams into the low 20s and hope that they have some sort of miraculous upside. They can convert into defensive touchdowns at a higher rate than league average, something like that. Like that's kind of that's New England's path this year. And I don't see that with Burrow coming back and probably being able to have his way with them a little bit. So yeah.
I was about to say, I have another question. When do you think we see Drake May? Have you thought about this at all? Because I'm trying to find a spot in the schedule, because there are some Drake May props out there. It's like 2,400 yards. And if he plays 10 games, he's going way under that. It's 240 yards a game. No way he's reaching. If he plays like 14 games, it's going to be really close. So have you thought about like a point in the schedule or how many games you think he plays?
Yeah, I think we see him sooner than later, right? Because it's going to be one of these things that's like, all right, look, we're losing anyway. Get the kid out there, right? Like, get the reps. Yeah. Like, what is he learning taking his lumps on the sideline? And I just think that becomes really hard in the media to kind of withstand that pressure. First time head coach, like Belichick's going to go in and go, hey, I have a process. This is what we're doing. He's not going to be like impacted by the media. Gerard Mayo, first time head coach, he might have a plan, but could be maybe a little bit more impacted by having to answer the same question over and over again. So, and it's a tough start, right? Cincinnati, Seattle, the Jets, and the Niners, and the Dolphins, and the Texans. Like, that is a miraculous, like, what is New England to go 0-5 to start? Like, I know that's a bet you can make. I think
there is a thing. Yeah, it's like a 5-week sprint that DraftKings offers. Or drive for week 5, or record after 5 games. Let's see here. New England. I mean, you're probably just getting better odds. Like, I'm sure rolling the
for sure.
0 wins is only plus 350.
So I mean, murderer's row to start.
Yeah, like they're either gonna have 0 or 1 win. I mean, that's like, that's my issue, is like they're 1-4 probably. I mean, best case 1-5 starting in that schedule. Like, at that point, it seems like we probably see Drake May somewhere in there. But if they go 0-4, because their closest game all season is week 2 against Seattle, projected wise. And so at home against a Seattle team that I kind of like, I think it's kind of fun. So
me too.
Like, if they start 0-4, like I would assume when the Drake May calls start. So I don't know. I don't think he's gonna have a ton of success when he gets there, but he's an unknown. So I almost like hate betting against like that kind of stuff, especially for a player who, I don't know. I think he's kind of unique. Like, I think he's just like has a high upside, low floor type of player, which could be really bad. I mean, the Patriots could not win a game all year, so who knows?
I think the latest we see him is week 5 at home against Miami, right? Like, if you decide like they start 0-2, they lose that Seattle game. To your point, like Seattle, West Coast, East, early start. I'm kind of with you on Seattle. I think there's some upside there too. Then you go on the road back to back in 2 of the best defenses in the league. You're on the road against the Jets. You're on the road against the Niners. You just don't start Drake May in those spots. I don't think. You wait. Let's get him at home. in the division. Miami, again, like I think that's just a softer landing spot for him in terms of what he's going up against. I think that's the latest you see him because I just don't. I think 1-3 is the best case scenario for the start for the Pats. So yeah, it's interesting because obviously it's hard to kind of look at. And you look at projections from Mike Clay. He's got him starting 15 games, so he's got him coming in week 3, and he's got him comfortably over 3,300 and change in terms of his passing yards, which is interesting thought.
That is an interesting there. 2 quick things. DraftKings, you can bet on Jacoby Brissett to start week 1. It's minus 260. I think that should be like minus 700. I mean, I played some of that at a local. I mean, I think that's, again, if you have some credit somewhere. I don't think we're sponsored by anyone right now. So yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, you got some credit. I think it's a great way to tie up some credit for a couple of months because I see very limited path to Drake May starting outside of a Jacoby Brissett injury in like preseason, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
The only other note that I had since you were talking about the Jets, I tweeted out like a divisional parlay of like all the division winners. I like to do that for fun. Obviously, again, it's not like a huge plus EV thing, but just a good time.
Again, you got close last year. You just
I was live in the
live at the end of the year. Yep.
Yeah. So that was cool. I didn't win, obviously, but the Jets, I like the Jets a lot. And you mentioned them as one of the best defenses, and I've gotten just nonsense. That's the pick I've gotten the most hate about. Is people like texting me, DMing me, like, "What are you talking about with the Jets? Like Rodgers is old." Like I'm like, they have one of the best rosters in the league. I'm at with them. So I don't know. I mean, like, I wonder how the market values them like on a week-to-week basis because I'm not sure I love them week 1 plus 6. I don't know. Is this one of your bets or no? Is this
no?
Okay. All right. Well, we can talk about it then. So plus 6. Like week 1 against the Niners. I mean, I feel like that's kind of like the gross close your eyes play of the week. That's like just going to cash. I mean, they're going to lose by like maybe 3. I think they're live to win. I mean, I think they're a really, really good team.
I'm with you. I hate it, but I think I agree. I mean, the offensive line, it's questions massively last season, but I think they've done a good job addressing that. And I feel like they have some depth there too. If someone happens to go down. Yeah. I mean, look, Rodgers is a polarizing character. The last year in Green Bay wasn't great, but we had bad years in Green Bay in the past, and people thought he was done, and then he comes out and runs back-to-back MVP seasons. So I think that there's just and I think there's more openness in terms of what's going on in the AFC East than even there was last year. I think Miami is maybe sputtered and even take a step back. I think maybe defensively a little bit, and I think obviously the Bills, I think, are still a very good team. I think maybe there's less upside in terms of what that offense can be without a Stephon Diggs. There's more questions there at the wide receiver position and pass catching group. So, yeah, I mean, there is a bit of an unknown. You're betting on a 40-year-old quarterback coming off of Achilles injury. However close you think he actually was coming back last year, however he wanted us to believe he was. It seemed like he was at least active and was he wanted us to see him throwing on the sideline or before games and doing stuff like that, but he was right. So I'm with you. I think that there's, again, we get a full season from Rodgers. The rest of the roster is really good, and the defense, I know defensively year over year is not super sticky and performances can wane and things like that, but like they have the dudes, right? There's continuity there. They're bringing back almost the entirety of that defense. They have a handful of rotational pass rushers. So it's not like they're just relying on 1 or 2 dudes to really get it done. Sauce Gardner is that dude at corner where you can actually really do a ton of things. He allows you to be multiple if you want to go play man heavy, lock someone down. Like they have the ability to do that. Great linebacker core. So yeah, I mean, it's a really good team. I don't like them week 1 either because I think the Niners are legit as well. But yeah, I mean, look, they get maybe a little bit cheaper too as the season kind of goes along, and maybe they, have a bad week 1 and then all of a sudden they get a little bit cheaper, in the rest of the September game. So I'm with you. We'll probably have some pro Jet stuff, which is tough for me to swallow, but it's just the reality of where that team is.
Yeah, no, for sure. Brian brings up a good point too. Weekly Pats team total under seem like great leans early in the season. Totally agree. We just got to see what those numbers are. I mean, we always talk about the 17, maybe 17 is kind of like the key under. I mean, this might be one of the teams that's like a 14.5 team. I mean, that's like, it gets to a point where they're, certain teams are just like going to score 10 to 13 points and they're just toast.
Those are the early Zach Wilson Jets years, right? Those 14.5 was fine. Like it was fine if we can get that. So obviously you'd prefer always, bad team. 17.5, I think, is just a nice spot, but I don't think we're going to get it. Like I said, obviously the Pats right now, 17, you're going to see books post out at 16.5 because they know what they're doing a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, there are spots where it's almost like, hey, some books allow you to like customize it. I think Caesars lets you do that a little bit too. Fanatics or PointsBet in the past would allow you to do that if you can get down there where you can manipulate the line a little bit. Like I'm comfortable going to like Pats at 17.5 if I'm having to pay minus 125 or something like that. Like I don't mind it. So, all right, the last one you got, was that the last one you like the Jets there?
No, I got one more. So
Okay.
my final one is kind of one that actually I just bet today. So I bet the Browns. This is moving a little bit. I know another service released this as well before the show, but I like the Browns in Week 1 against the Cowboys. I think they're like -1 at this point. They're at home. We're looking at I think the defense is still really strong. They added Jerry Jeudy. They still have a top 5 offensive line. Deshaun Watson is still kind of unknown, and I frankly don't think that he'll ever quote return to form. I think at this point you're just hoping to get like competent quarterback play out of him. But I think that they have the infrastructure set up that they don't really need that necessarily to still be a good team here. And then on the other side, we have a Dallas team that lost Tyler Biadasz, Tyron Smith. The running back group is Rico Dowdle and Zeke. It's just like this, I think a joke of a room, to be honest, at this point. And the receiving room and their passing group is very much fine, but I think it's kind of thin. Like it's CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson's fine, and then it's like Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert. I mean, it's just like a bunch of guys who don't really do it for me. So I think that is obviously a key part too. So just straight up at face value, I think that this Browns team was probably going to be a bet for me anyways. And then behind the scenes, there's some rumblings that there could be some health issues with Dak as well. So again, those aren't verified. There's not, for sure there, but this was already a lean anyways. And that kind of pushed me over the edge to like, hey, maybe I should, pop this real quick and, talk about it a little bit. Because I think it's worth a look regardless. Like even if Dak's 100% plays, like it's great. And if not, then this line's going to be like -6. If Trey Lance plays, I mean, it's like a touchdown probably, if possible.
Yeah. No, for sure. And it has moved a bunch today. I had this earlier in my notes before I saw that you had it too. And then was looking at it now. It looks a little different. It looks like there's a rogue at Bet Rivers. If you happen to have access to that book, it looks like they're the only one still with Dallas as a short favorite at -1. So you can get actually +1 there, or decent money line value on Cleveland in that spot. They're kind of the only ones that's still holding out on that line. So yeah, I'm with you. I think, futures on the Browns make a ton of sense. I know that they're kind of a popular team, 8.5 win total. The division, is in play for some of those teams. And, I think a wide open division. It's a good division. So, but I think it's a good roster. And, again, it comes down to what is Deshaun Watson, man? Is he what we saw last year? It's just so wild to think of, who he was as a quarterback in Houston versus what we saw last year. Just a totally different dude. So it's almost like performance enhancing drugs on and off. Like those rub and tugs were his I don't know, that's the steroids. Like he all of a sudden is not getting them and he just can't get it done. I have no idea. Alleged rub and tugs, but
alleged.
Yeah. But I don't know, man. Like he was a different dude last year. So all right, I had a couple. The one that jumps out to me, I'm curious as, and I get a little bit of hesitancy to fire on it because I look at a sharp book like Pinnacle being a little bit off. Domestically, this is available everywhere. Falcons are -2.5, -110 across the board against the Steelers at home in Week 1. If the Falcons are who the market thinks they are, and part of that is obviously tied to the schedule and they, play some easy teams. But I think the Falcons, everyone thinks it's an upgrade. Obviously with Kirk Cousins there at quarterback, they should be at least 3 at home against the Steelers, who have a decent amount of questions. I think we like what they did, and the roster's got there's some good paths to the future. The offensive line's obviously an upgrade. I think the defense is okay, middle of the pack. Obviously, Tomlin can coach them up. Russ makes me nervous. It's going to be Russ, I feel like, in Week 1. And we know they're going to be able to run the football, but I think the Falcons be okay at stopping the run. I just feel like this should be at least 3 if the Falcons are who the market thinks they are. So, and the fact that it's readily available at 2.5, And there's actually 2.5 plus 104, kind of edging to the Steelers over at Pinnacle makes me a little hesitant. But again, like, I don't know that I'm like all in on the Falcons, but I definitely think that the Steelers are maybe a little overrated. I think we're just getting some of that, like, Tomlin doesn't have a losing record kind of a thing built in there. And can they unpack some of that, previous Russ stuff? And I don't know, the question marks for me in terms of the pass catching core in Pittsburgh. What do you think there?
Yeah, this is going to be like one of those like new school versus old school matchups. Like this is very much what that is. Whereas we're going to see like the Falcons probably pass a lot, the whole like new Zach Robinson kind of vibe of the offense and everything. Whereas, Arthur Smith and the Steelers are going to play some old school football. I mean, again, I tend to want to pick the Falcons in that, like, because they have, kind of the shiny weapons, they have the toys, they have, like, I think the ability to keep up with any team, right? Like, I think that's kind of like they're built so that they can do that. And especially if they get anything out of the defense, which I think still has a lot of, questions marks on it. But, again, we have a potentially talent maximizer, as you mentioned. But like, I worry betting against, in these games, like, where I just think the stylistic differences are going to be so drastic that, I mean, it just could be, if the Falcons are not humming offensively, it's going to be like a 17-13 win by the Steelers. And if they are, then, I mean, the Steelers can't keep up with the Falcons. I mean, that's just like going to be the reality of it. So I think it's like could go one way or the other. And so for me, it's a little bit of a stay away. But if I had to pick, it'd probably be Falcons at 2.5.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Steelers defense is good. They're okay. Like, especially they stay healthy. They're going to be good in week one. I just have concerns, especially if like they're going to see a lot of 3 receiver sets, which has been kind of a staple of McVay and McVay disciples. I think that's going to be a tough matchup for the Steelers this season. Like, they're also built, I think, to defend teams similar to how they play, in terms of teams that want to spread them out and make them defend, slot and over the middle of the field. I think that's going to be a little bit troublesome for them. But I'll be interested to see how that evolves over the course of the season. It's just, I mean, I feel like it should be at 3, I think. Maybe the Steelers, if you're kind of bullish on the Steelers, they're probably a pretty attractive teaser leg. If you can, 2.5, get them up to 8.5, and find something else to pair them with. Maybe the Colts at home against the Texans or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there's some interesting ones out there. But yeah, that one's the last one that kind of jumped out to me. The other one is kind of opening night. Like, part of this goes on to my Ravens stuff a little bit. Like, I like the Chiefs 2.5 at home on opening night. But we'll see what that is. Right now it's minus 120. We'll kind of watch where that evolves. But I think the Chiefs just got a little bit better. I think the Ravens are a little bit worse. And again, like, those are kind of toss-up games. Obviously seen some wild stuff. Obviously last year we wouldn't have thought that would be a thing in week 1 with Detroit going in there and winning the ring ceremony stuff. So interesting to see what's going on there. But yeah, I lean on the Chiefs a little bit, 2.5. So we'll see where that market evolves. All right, buddy. Anything else to the people before you go and take in Detroit?
We got NHL draft coming up. I bet a little bit of Zeev Buium to go 3rd overall.
Okay.
I don't know. Just he's going a little bit, and some under 7.5. I think those are both some solid looks there. So for anyone watching live or listening to this before the draft tees off, I don't know, is it tees off? What is it? Puck drops off? I don't know. Whatever it would be for hockey. I like those bets. And then Shuryanasov, whatever is Igor, this guy's not going to be drafted in the first round. So just take the over. It's like 20.5, 21.5. I don't care. I laid the juice. Max bet hammer. That's my NHL draft play of the week.
Okay. Love it. What's going on with you jumping in the river here, Lake Michigan?
Jeff's talking about, so basically he's saying that if the Lions beat the Bears by 35 in Chicago, I forgot that I responded to a tweet of his that, because I mean, they play in Chicago in December, and I said if the Bears lose, he's like, oh, the Lions are gonna win by 35. I was like, if the Lions beat the Bears by 35, I'll jump in Lake Michigan in December. So I forgot exactly what it was, but that was the premise of the bet. And I'm more than happy to do that because that's not going to happen. I mean, they're first off probably going to win. I don't think Jared Goff has ever scored 35 points in a game that has temperatures below like 50 even, let alone what it'll be in Chicago in December, which will probably be 30 best case, 35 best case, and most likely in the 20s or single digits even.
Okay. Warren over Najee props. You are on Najee props a little bit.
I am. I think Najee's gonna crush and be the guy just because we talked about it a little bit. It was a Tomlin decision that Najee salts the game away, that Najee's their guy. Like later in games, if they're winning or close, like it wasn't just an Arthur Smith thing. So, or it wasn't just the last offensive coordinator thing. So I think that we see a lot of both of them probably, but that Najee's gonna be their guy if they're winning or close.
And our guy Brian's got some NASCAR stuff in the chat for peeps as well. Shout out to Brian. Dip your toes in NASCAR. Hit Logano plus 100 over Keselowski. All right. Superbook, nice CLV. I'm going to trust Brian. I'm not a NASCAR guy, but I know Brian grinds it and knows what he's doing there. So look at this. You come for some week 1 bets and you're getting NHL draft bets. We're getting season-long props. We're getting NASCAR stuff. Gotta love it for the people. So, all right, buddy. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy Detroit.
As much as I can.
Yeah, you'll find a way, I'm sure. So, again, we appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Available if you're listening on podcast. We appreciate it. If you're not, subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. Continue. We're getting close. We're going to get into our divisional preview series here shortly. Available as well if you want to hang out with us live on YouTube. 4for4 bets on YouTube. Subscribe, thumbs up, likes, all those things go a long way in helping support the channel. We appreciate it very much. So we will see you next time. Again, 4for4 bets. You want to get in there, get all the Discord plays, 4for4.com/plans, get the betting subscription, access to everything we do at 4for4. That's where you really want to be this season. Check it out. So for Connor, I'm Ryan. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks, everyone.